Welcome to Poemalogue. I'm Dasha Kelly Hamilton, your host. I'm the Poet Laureate for the city of Milwaukee and for the state of Wisconsin. And Poemalogues is my chance to gather some familiar faces and some new friends into a digital space and still have a meaningful, unscripted, unexpected conversations. You know, the best kind. And today our conversations are going to be centered around joy. Whew. I don't know if you can ever have too much joy, but I don't know if we're always certain that we have enough joy. And I went searching for a poem that talked about that feeling of when you think or you worry that your joy is gone or leaving or evaporated. And I got some interesting insight all through poetry. I'll share my piece at the end, and all of us to understand that this is not a conversation about poetry. This is not an academic literary exploration of stanzas. No, it's heavy on the log. Poemalogues are a chance to fall in conversation about the lives we are all figuring out. So I am excited to bring a dear friend and colleague to the screen. She's going to talk to you about screens too and get a sense of what is bringing you joy. Miss Kat, how are you?
I am doing wonderful and super excited to be here and love that you have a platform where we get to dialogue. That's really
Remember those?
amazing.
Remember those?
I do. I remember conversations like in person, like pre-COVID. I don't know if that ages me at this point.
Well, at least for a change, things that mark how old you were or not, we all have the same marker. We
That's
all
true.
have the same marker. Somebody made a reference to a TV show the other day, and I was the only one in the screen that laughed. So me and the person who said it. I remember being in a restaurant once, and the waitress, her name was Josie. I was like, huh, like the Pussycats. I was like, yeah, your auntie will take her drink now. Your auntie,
Yeah.
just never mind. Never mind.
And the funny part is that's probably where her mother got the name.
Come through.
Yeah.
Ask questions, Josie. Ask questions, Josie. You were
Ask
named after a
questions.
cartoon. One of my favorite cartoons as a child. Thank you. Thank you. Live up to the story. So tell the good people who you are. So I want them to appreciate why I am beaming the way that I am. Tell us who you are. What is your whole life story?
My whole life story
Don't leave
in
out the good
slam
part.
format. Yeah, so my name is Kat Magill. I am a poet, author, educator, producer, and curator of events out of Los Angeles. And I'm originally from the East Coast. I'm originally from PG County, Maryland. And my whole life story in 2 minutes is I was a young kid who was really lost, who didn't feel like I have agency over my voice, even though I came from a dance background and had autonomy over my body. And in the process of my life, the universe brought me over to California, and I found a little open mic called A Mic and Dim Lights, where I found amazing mentors that gave me agency over my voice. And from there, the rest is history. I went on to touring for 15 years, developing curriculum, founded a nonprofit organization teaching youth development through spoken word. That organization is called Say Word. And then went on to do some really fun things and experiment with the art, like stage plays and short films. And for me, in a nutshell, poetry is something that is a vehicle of emotionality and truly bringing definition to who you are. And so, as many areas that I can explore, I most certainly will. And my journey's not done yet. Boom, slam.
Boom. You've done this once or twice. You've done it like, nope, we are not going to hear any complaints about going over time. I'm just giggling at the idea of transferable skills, right? And thank you for that. And I don't think I knew that you were a dancer.
Yeah, that was originally, I had started dancing when I was 5. And my aunt had danced from the same dance teacher. My mom, like, it was like Miss Terry was like the family's, everybody went through Miss Terry. And I was one of the ones that actually happened to stay with Miss Terry. Yeah, up until I moved to California, which I was, 15 when I moved here. And my whole perspective of life was I was going to be a professional dancer. And Then I moved to California. It's very expensive. It's so I found hip hop and I started b-girling and freestyling when I couldn't go to a studio, which led me to a poetry spot.
I
And
love
that's how I found a mic and dim lights, and then realized, wow, I have all this agency over my body, but I'm still scared to use my voice. And
that was
so,
that was going to be my next question, just because it's usually the opposite. Well, not the opposite. Having agency over your body is a whole nother conversation too, right?
right.
So to come into a space and agency over your whole body, but not this part. So I guess I'm curious, having had agency over your body, did you kind of know what you were did you know what you were missing with your voice? Or
Girl,
was that a
no, I was
surprise? Or
17. I didn't know nothing. You know what I'm saying? This is
wait,
all
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought we knew everything at 17.
no. This is all reflective work. This is when you go back and do the work and
Gotcha.
be like, did I know that? I didn't, but thank God I went down the path, right? No, I was 17. I was a teenager. I didn't have any family. I was in a state across the whole country. And so I felt really alone. But this is what I did know. I knew that when I danced, whether I was in a studio or I was in a cipher, I knew I felt safe. And for me, that's how my mind translated agency back then, was safety. And so I knew that when I danced, I felt safe. And I knew that when I would step to a mic, I felt very unsafe originally. I felt very uncomfortable and was like, why would anybody do this to themselves? Why would anybody say things out loud?
Two people.
Right. I don't like my circles were small, right? But the more I did it, the more I started finding home. And again, right, if you think of home, you think of safety. And so that's how I started finding agency in my voice to be myself and to explore more.
How do you, and you work a lot with young people. So how do you, and it was coming to my mind, I had one of my young people who said to me once, how did you start XYZ? I did it. I did it. It needed to happen. And it needed to happen. I tried to get someone and didn't. So I just did it. And she just looked at me and she said, do you realize what kind of agency that is? And I was like, yeah. But people who've known me my life will tell you I've been that person. And sometimes it's foolishness, and it's because I operate so much in my head, you don't process, this probably isn't a smart idea, or this is not an efficient way to do it. You just do it.
Right.
So refine that as an adult. So don't get me wrong, it's not that I don't have spaces where I'm not really sure if I can and how to. Absolutely. I'm a whole human being.
Right.
But I took note of, for that to be something that this young person noticed, that she noticed it with a marvel. And so, like, I've been coaching people. I hear you saying that you're afraid and you have stage fright. Now get out there. And because that's not been something I've not been nervous ever.
Right.
I understand, but I don't necessarily empathize. So I want to keep you safe, but I'm also going to get you out there on that stage.
Right.
So the flip of that, so I think of that moment and I'm wondering, how do you convey, do you convince, do you encourage agency in someone where that's a new concept?
I mean, it depends, right? If we're talking about the virtual world, right? Because I'm still teaching now, that's a whole spectrum, which I've been playing with my students as well, to engage. But if we're talking pre that in person, I think the approaches are similar, right? And so for me, when I'm working with young people, being 17 when I started, I completely remember that place and do have to often remind myself of the agency that I had to develop and have grow, and where they're at. And so I think for me, if someone is struggling with having autonomy over their story, their voice, their body, whatever that may be, it's about baby steps. It's about, okay, well, do you trust your peer, right? How about we practice with you and the peer? right? Okay, cool. Now you have the peer. Do you have a crew? Okay, you don't have a crew? All right, let's get you a crew, right? Finding those supportive systems first to put in place before the performance, right? That, because that's what it comes down to, right? Is most times courageous people have at least at least one strong supportive person, right? Some of us don't even have one,
Yeah.
right? And so I think it's, the poem comes way later for me. It's about what do your support systems look like? Right? Maybe I'm, as the educator, you're only one. But then it's about convincing, not to do the poem, but to convince them of being like, but I got you though. You may only have me, but I'm a lot. So I got you, right?
Wow.
And then lending to the peers and scholars and those around them to start identifying, to start looking at each other's work, not to critique the work, but to see what's relatable in the work so that they can start building those threads and bridges of, oh, I know that. I've experienced that too. And then I find, right, they start having more agency, more autonomy over their stories just to tell them because they found a connection, right? And then we work on the poems and then we work on all that. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I think that's what it's really about in the beginning for me, is just making sure that my young people understand a support system. Because to be honest, I didn't find my support system until I found poetry.
Whoa, so it's that, I think it's that conversation of chosen family. And one of my young people, I remember when she went off to college, it was her first semester and just kind of checking in. She says, things are good. Classes are this. And, I got a car and I've found healthy people. And just that was a marker that she knew was important. It was really encouraging, inspiring for me, because you don't know even to look for that language, or it here, but you don't necessarily know to articulate this thing that you're looking for in those ages. So that point when you're here and building a network and a community, and like you said, you were out there by yourself. Now, fast forward, I want to ask this question on this side of this work.
Okay.
How do you take care of you? Because now you are massive, you are a lot, and it's just more on your shoulders. And I know it's out of love, but how do you do that balance of caring for this community and this network?
So I want to be completely transparent. I have not found the magic balancing beam.
Okay, we're done. Right? Thanks for coming. Next.
Yeah, I have not found the magic balancing beam. I know that I'm human just like everybody else, right? As I told you earlier, I am a professional human. I human like no other. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, I get my human on, which means I am very multifaceted at, breakdowns. I got like a degree in breakdowns. You know what I mean? I'm really, really good at rambling until I figure out the answer. Being lost. Oh, I aced being lost. And I say all of that to say is the way that I care for myself is I give myself permission to be all that, right? And I think that's very difficult for us, especially in this day and age with social media, making everybody look like they got some perfect life, which, that's non-existent, right? Nobody's perfect, right? And I think it's difficult, but if you can find the permission slip for you to be whatever human in that moment you're supposed to be, I recommend you take that trip. You sign that slip. Because that's it.
That's a whole world. I mean, a whole world, yes, and a whole word. In just the undoing, the unraveling, the unlearning of the path we put ourselves on. You think at one point you get to a certain maturity, and all the things you was finna do, you give yourself grace and you forgive yourself. So yes, okay, I'm not whatever you thought you were going to be when you grew up and you're grown, you're not that. So those pieces, those forgivenesses are easy now, but some of it's still work. You never get to the point where you're
Oh, it's
done.
always work. Whoever told you there ain't no work until you're dead. And I assume that even when I die, it's gonna be some work to get into wherever I need to get into, right? Because a girl done lived. So the work is never done. Not just saying. But yeah, I mean I think that's the biggest journey of self-care that I have been on is not the, you know, I mean, yes, like meditation helps. Yes, right? Prayer helps. Yes, giving myself a day off and sleep helps.
Hmm.
But the biggest thing past all of that, because sometimes I don't even get all that. But the biggest thing is, did you give yourself permission to just be cat today? And then you have to ask, well, do you know who cat is today?
Yeah.
Right? And then you just kind of go down the rabbit hole, you know. Um,
Hmm.
and my rabbit hole is definitely a wonderland, and I take the good with the bad, and that's why art is so amazing, right? Is because you don't have to understand. I can flip this and turn it into something that you may believe as an audience is for you, but it was actually for me to interpret what I was feeling.
Every time.
So yeah,
And you said something that turns out to be the truth. And I say it that way because we enter this thought wanting to fix something about ourselves. We enter this journey wanting to polish, wanting to get it just right. And your word is you're discovering, you're understanding, you get to a point where you to yourself are explaining yourself to yourself, forgiving yourself to yourself. And it's different from going into it, I need to fix this thing about me. And don't get me wrong, if you got some things to work on that. Thank you very much
yes,
for the rest of us humans out here.
yeah,
But every blemish doesn't need to be bleached over, right? So
right.
every misstep, you just have to acknowledge that it's there. So I
Yeah,
like
and I was a fixer. I'll tell you. I'm
that.
like I myself was a fixer upper, but I also was a fixer of others, right? And I still am,
Ooh.
right? And so there was a lot of unpacking around that, right? Of what that looks like. And here's what I discovered. The more I understood myself, the more I understood the world. The more I understood the world, the more questions I had. So it was like this cycle of recognizing, oh, actually, the more inquisitive you become and the less answers that, no, like how will the answers get replaced with questions?
Yes.
Actually, you're smarter asking more questions than you are answering stuff, right? I
Yeah,
don't know if that makes sense, but
it
like that's
does.
what I discovered.
It does. I start with a conversation about questions when I start my internships working with
Mm,
younger, anybody really, but especially younger professionals, younger leaders. So we start with a whole session about questions,
mm.
big, small, goofy, weird, and just what it does to you when you give yourself permission to, and not so much to go find to learn stuff. It's not just about pouring new trivia into your
Right.
head, but that curiosity, like you said, takes you to something else. And the person who asks, not just for asking questions, but you really are genuinely curious, and it does build a different relationship that you have with the world. It reminds you how small you are, but how enormous you also still are. With you
Yeah.
still know stuff just because
It's
you're
it's
asking
it's an
questions.
interesting thing how that works, right? It's just like you recognize your power and impact and ability. And so I call it the personal bubble, right? So my cat bubble includes you, right? It includes
Mhm.
my daughter, it includes people that like my art, it includes, right? That's the cat bubble, right? And I'm also in your bubble, right? And so the bubbles start connecting, right? But if you think of an ocean, and you think of a school of fish, and when they breathe, how many bubbles are floating to the top? And those bubbles interconnect. And that may be the hugest school of fish you've ever seen with all these bubbles. But the ocean is still the ocean, right? And so that's the beautiful thing is that, we can take our bubbles and keep connecting them. We don't have to actually like expand the bubble until it bursts, or we don't have to like make
Mhm.
it so small we can't breathe. We can have just our regular bubble, but our bubble connects to another bubble, connects to another bubble, connects to another bubble. And then it's linked. And for me, that's the kind of expansion that I like. right? I like linked expansion. I don't like just my bubble to get all big and then be taking up too much space in the ocean just because I'm out here lounging in the biggest bubble
Just
ever.
because
You
you
know what I'm
can.
saying? Yeah, I just need a bubble that's enough space for me, and you can have your bubble. We can link our bubbles together, right?
Adjoining bubbles.
Right,
That is the
that's
world
what I want.
plan. Adjoining bubbles.
I want adjoining bubbles. That's what I want. That's what I want. I know all my analogies are crazy. I don't, this is where my mind goes.
Yeah, you get two poets on a conversation, we will be everywhere, everywhere. But dropping that fire in gems all the time, all the way. So how did you enter this conversation about joy?
So joy has been a part of my conversation with everyone, including myself, for really hardcore, probably the last 2 years. So right before COVID hit, I started doing just a lot of interpersonal work of really examining, because I'm a person that suffered from depression, anxiety, pretty much most of my life. And it's interesting how the road of trauma can lead you to joy. And I say that because, I was a kid that had suicide attempts. I also, was abused, right? All the things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And about 2 years ago, I started just like unpacking what I was holding on to that was never mine.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
yeah. And so I started asking the question again, everything starts with a question with me. Who would you be if the trauma wasn't a part of you? Right. And so it was two-sided, right? One side was you wouldn't be this amazing person that you are if you hadn't gone through that. And I agree with that. But then the other side of me was how much of the defense mechanism put you in survival mode that you needed to be that person to survive, but you don't still need it and you're holding on to it.
Not
And so,
serving.
right. And so I think that's where the conversation started with me. It wasn't negating my past and what I went through and the struggles and the journey. And I know that is a belief system, right? Is like what you go through makes you what you become, right? But it also was acknowledging that a lot of our personality traits, our belief systems or false belief systems come because we strap on armor in different ways, whether that's sarcasm or whether that's, making sure you're distant or all these measures we take that at the time truly protected us. But then we get to a stage where you go, but do I still need that now? Because now it's hurting me. Now it's not allowing me to move past that and live because I'm still in survival. And so my journey to joy came from taking off the armor and going, well, I feel safer than I did before. So do I really need this pessimism? I can let's try it for 2 days. Just take it off. Let's just be optimistic about everything, right? That wasn't my jam, by the way, but I tried it,
We
right?
didn't stick with that one. We didn't stick with
But
that one.
I've had a little bit of balance, right? Or, oh, I didn't need to, put everyone I dated through this gauntlet, right? Let's take that off a little bit, right? Let's see what happens, right? So it was just like shedding that. And then I found that like underneath, when you think of, right, someone that is naked, right, is bare to the world, and gets to walk without burden. To me, that's really what joy is to be unburdened, right? Yeah, to be liberated. That's to me what joy is to be liberated. But
I
yeah,
love that. Joy is to be liberated. And especially in this context of releasing things that you don't need. But there's also, and it's knowing what's comfort and what's habit and what do you need.
yeah,
And when you don't, and having the habit of doing those check ins and doing a check in a really thorough way,
yeah,
and that's a practice. And it's a practice.
It is a practice, and you will backslide and you will wake up. Look here, joy don't come easy. You know what I'm saying? Joy don't come easy.
It may come in the morning, but it ain't gonna be easy.
It ain't gonna be easy, right? So I mean, I can tell you there are definitely days that I know, like I can feel gritty. You know what I mean? Where I'm just like, oh, I hate everything. You know what I mean? And I'm like, okay, Kat, well, you might need to do. And then my spirit is like, I hear you, I hear you, I hear you, right? But you have to, right? You have to. And so for me, that's when all these like external practices come in that reflect the internal. That's when I'm like, get up and take a walk, Kat. Get up and take a walk, right? Go outside, get some sunshine on you. Okay, that didn't work. I'm still angry with an ice cream cone in my hand and sunshine shining on my face. I still want to be mad. Okay, well, put the ice cream cone down and maybe just sit in silence, right? You don't even have to call it meditation. Just sit in silence. Just sit down somewhere, right? And so it's like I have to go through this practice until I find, right, oh, that worked today. Because what works one day may not work another day. But again, I have to be willing. I have to be willing to do that. And so I just made the decision that, some other ways didn't work out. So what I got to lose trying this way?
Trying something new. And the trying and the trying and going towards a liberation being the goal, different from I did this and this and this and this and this and this. Because this leans into a practice, a religion almost.
Right.
Or ritual, and all of those things are definitely still necessary. Ritual, religion, practice, but having an intention behind it keeps all of those efforts productive for you.
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear then how this search led you to a poem. But before we do that discovery, do you have anything that you're excited about? Do you have a good word you want the people to know?
First of all, I am always excited about breathing and blinking. It's a privilege in this day and age to be waking up, breathing, and blinking. And so I want to give a shout out to my eyelashes and my breath. I appreciate you every day. But yeah, I'm really excited. As you know, I host really one of the hottest, I'm going to just say it, one of the hottest Instagram poetry slams around, called Screen Time. And we're now going into our 5th season. And celebrating our 1-year anniversary in March. And so our slam season is starting back, but I'm just excited that we lasted this long. First of all, during a pandemic, and giving away all this money. But we have a really exciting, legendary slam that will be happening with all the Screen Time prior winners. And
I want to pause because I just to hear you say Screen Time and legend and slam, and because I personally know how what is it, the house you done come from, the idea of being able to see that, that's what has me swaying. Like somebody said, grandmama cooking this weekend. What?
Yeah.
A legend slam.
A legend slam. And so, just so folks know, right, we ain't playing over here. So to just give you a taste and name some of the legends that are a part of this slam, that will be happening on Instagram, by the way. My Instagram is Pretty Simple Cat. It happens right on my live. You ready for this list? So let's start with Ed Mabry. Then we move to Stephen Willis. Then we move to Akeem Rollins. Then we move to Masterpiece. Then Lady Breon. Then Jamon Hill. I mean, we got a couple others in store, but I'll stop there.
Now, for the non-legends or legends in the making, can they participate? Watch?
Yes.
Okay.
Because
so on your...
Yeah, so everything is on my Instagram, but you can also visit screentimeslam.com, and there'll be all the information there. That's really easy to remember. But yeah, so the beginning of the season starts soon. And You can sign up and register, and registration is really simple. It's $20 and anybody can register, whether you're a first timer and are just like, oh, I just want to get my feet wet and build community and, spit some good poems with other amazing poets. Or if you're an OG and you want to rec shop and prove your name and earn your stripes, you can also sign up. And there's 30 slots open. All of your registration money will actually go back in the pot for the community. And what I mean by for the community is that we have been paying poets outright during the entire pandemic, since many of us has lost shows. And we've offered at this point $12,000 at the end of this season.
Wow.
Yeah, at the end of this season, we'll probably reach 15,000 that we've put directly in poets' pockets during this time. And so, yeah, so they can sign up.
As a poet with a pocket, on behalf of us all, thank you, especially in this, as my father called it, this science fiction movie that we're all still living in right now.
In the panorama.
Let's get to the poem that you found.
Oh, I love it.
You're like,
because I did find one.
Okay.
So when I think of joy, the first thing that comes to mind, and I love this exercise, by the way, the first thing that came to mind for me was a sunflower. And it's a sunflower not because it's bright and yellow, right? That's easy. But my daughter loves sunflowers and always has since she was little. So I think of her and that's what I think of. And so I was going down the rabbit hole of things, and I found a poem by an author that I actually don't know, and I love that I don't know them, so I can kind of expand my catalog. Her name is Cheyenne Rain, and the poem goes something like this. All things lovely come and go, like waves on a shoreline. All things beautiful are fragile and breakable, like a petal next to fire, and yet you are bright and careless, reckless in how you love. No understanding, yet completely open to find new passions, like a diamond from rock to ring. And I find it quite perfect, the way you live, in harmony with your soul, your ocean and petals.
Did y'all hear all that, Mama Love? It was kind of about the flower, but not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Oh, thank you for that. Smile.
So beautiful, right?
It really, really is. And it does all the things. It does all the things. It really is.
Shout out to Cheyenne Rain. I don't know her yet, but I'm going to find her.
Make it happen. Make it happen. And if anyone's going to make things happen, it's definitely going to be you, Miss Cat. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to share your story. And also, always, I appreciate being able to think big thoughts and laugh big laughs with you.
Me too. And thank you for, Dasha, you always doing something, right? To better, to grow, to develop not only yourself, but your community and every single person around you. And I'm just really thankful that you're in my life and that you have another space that people can constantly get gems and you're accessible, right? I love that you don't put any veils on anything you do, and you allow people to come and break bread and take as they may and leave and never be hungry. So thank you to you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'm trying to have adjoining bubbles too. Thank you much. And so have this discussion of joy. You have these moments, like she said, where you aren't feeling your best. You aren't feeling all the way whole, and you can feel that maybe joy is leaving you. And I was looking for a poem, and the first thing that came to my mind with the idea of joy leaving was the idea, the visual of a balloon escaping. And in finding this poem, which is perfect in that it was a poem for children, and a elementary school teacher, and it's a reminder at the end that joy doesn't leave. Now, happiness, that mug will leave, but not joy once you have it. Like she said, once you are liberated, you're free, and joy stays with you. So this poem is by Eveline Stein, and it's called The Lost Balloon. Oh dear, my purple toy balloon has flown away, and very soon it will be up as high as the moon. And I don't think the man up there will wonder, what is it, and stare. Perhaps he'll say, well, I declare, Or maybe if at chance there are some little boys in yonder star and it floats away so far, perhaps they'll jump up very high and catch the cord as it goes by. At any rate, I hope they'll try. Just know that there's a star out there that might catch the string in your balloon. Like she said, you have agency to build the love and the joy around you. Remember that. Carry it with you. I hope to see you next week. Thanks.